All right. This is gonna go into what is your favorite Stacks book club pick of 2023? So the book
Okay,
you picked.
my favorite book club pick is
Yeah.
Monsters by Claire Dederer. It's not a perfect book, but there was so much to discuss. It's about how consumers of art deal with the art of monstrous people. So Harvey Weinstein, uh, Richard Wagner, who was a musician, a classical musician and composer whose music became like the theme songs for the Nazis, basically. Like how we engage with Valkyrie, which is like his famous piece. Anyways, and the book is asking these questions about like thoughts and feelings and art and how we respond and who monsters are and all of that. And the book is so rich for thinking and discussing, which I think is what makes a great book club pick. So for me, it was my favorite book club pick because we had some really great discussions. Though I will also say this year we had, I think, the best book club picks, like as a collection of 12 books that we've ever had. So I was really excited about this year in general.
Yeah, so how do you go about diversifying your picks? Because it seems like you have like all these different, you read from different genres. I'd love to hear like how you go about like, all right, I need to read, or when do you switch, or how's your style when it comes to the next book you read?
So you mean for the podcast or for me
The
personally?
podcast or you personally? I just kind of want to know like how you diversify.
Okay. They're
Yeah.
sort of connected and sort of different. So the way that the show started was that I wanted to talk about the books that I wanted to talk about in the way that I wanted to talk about them. Mostly because I felt like a lot of shows about books at the time were either like very stuffy, pretentious, or they were like three like white ladies in Nashville, like drinking wine and talking about Colleen Hoover or whatever. And I was like, I don't want that either. So for my reading, I just try to read what's interesting to me. I try to and I'm a really naturally curious person. And so it's easy for me to try and find new things. But for the podcast, I understand that I'm programming for an audience. And so I try to make sure that, we don't do back to back the same kinds of books, but also I let my guests help me pick for book club. So the way the process works is once I come up with a guest, once I book a guest, I'll be like, great, we're going to do book club. Can you send me over 3 to 5 books that you would be interested in reading and talking about on the show? And the only stipulation usually is that it can't be a book by someone they're so close with that they would be uncomfortable talking negatively about the book. But otherwise, it can be from any time period. It can be by any author. It can be something they've read and they've loved. It can be something they've read and they've hated. It can be something they've been meaning to read. And sometimes they'll send over 3 to 5 books and I'll be like, oh, I'm not really excited about any of those. And I'll send back 3 to 5 and be like, what about these? Like sometimes it'll happen, they'll send over like 3 books that are all thrillers. And I'll be like, I don't really want to read these thrillers, but here's a thriller by a Black author that I'm sort of curious about. Or they'll send over a range of things and I'm having a hard time figuring it out. And I'll look at what we did the month before. And sometimes when I email, I know for sure that I want to talk about. Like if it's like we had Miriam Kaba on the podcast and she is a prison abolitionist. And I knew for sure I wanted to do an prison abolition text. So I
Yeah.
asked her for which text she might be interested in. I sent her back. I also sent her a few that I knew, and then I let her pick from that list. So it sort of depends if the person is like an expert and I really want to talk about that topic, or if it's someone who's sort of like sometimes with memoirists,
Yeah.
we do memoirs, but sometimes with memoirists, we do novels or short stories. It really just depends on the person and the show as a whole. So it's not, it's more of an art than a science.